So you know about Catnap, right? The big boss, the head honcho, the main man of the soon-to-be-released Chapter 3. A little mystery man that we know nothing about. Or do we? Of course, there's lots to theorize about with the information we know so far from mob games. However, there's even more that surprising amount people aren't talking about, because there's the stuff that we've been outright told or shown, like Catnap's ability to change size and its obsessive etchings about the prototype, but there's a little more that we can glean off the surface. I'm Spice from Cook Cafe, and I'm about to tell you that this is what Catnap will do in Chapter 3. Now to start us off, I'm gonna have to set up some context. In a video posted by Mob Entertainment called RestrictedRestoration.mp4, we watch as Thomas Clark, a man with lung cancer, is transformed into a brawn toy. However, this goes horribly wrong as the other toys attempt to maul him until the researchers come in to save him. This attack is very animalistic in nature, and given how certain toys seem to have an apex predator like power over certain areas, such as Mommy Longlegs with the game station, it can be safely assumed that almost all of the toys have a sort of animal kingdom-like structure to their society. Animalistic behaviors are also clearly present when you consider the many dead, bloodied toys scattered throughout the factory, with very few being seen alive and working together outside very specific circumstances, like PJ Pugapillar, Bunzo, or the mini Huggies. Even then, there's a clear dominance amongst them, with Mommy having absolute control. We can see clear animalistic behaviors in the others as well, like Boxy Boo or Huggy Wuggy himself, with the only real character not display these traits being Poppy and possibly the prototype, and Mommy to some extent. Although most characters aren't specific animals, say for Pugapillar or Catbee, what we've seen of Pugapillar's behavior matches up with what you'd expect from a real dog. He obeys Mommy's orders of playing the rules, only starting to chase you once the game has begun, and when it has begun, he goes directly for the player, no strategy or being sneaky here. With this, it's safe to assume that the same can apply to Catnap, that Catnap's actions would parrot that of a real cat. Once you realize that, we learn a lot about how Catnap will act in Chapter 3. As a matter of fact, we already have some proof of this from the teasers. Instinctually, cats are natural hunters, with an instinct to stalk and catch prey, doing things like pouncing, scratching, and climbing to satisfy these instincts. We see him pouncing on Mini Huggy in their first appearance, the trailer. These wall etchings certainly look scratched in, and in this shot, we can clearly see him on the ceiling. So we know Catnap's gonna stalk us. That much is obvious. I mean, we are playing a horror game, but what else? Well, cats are rather territorial creatures who mark their territories with their scent. Seeing as Catnap's scent is lavender, we're either gonna be in rooms filled with that, or the poppy gas we've been seeing him spewing. Either way, cats are extremely scent-based, so maybe the player will have to rely on masking their scent to avoid being found. Lather our stank in lavender soap, so Catnap has a harder time detecting exactly where we are. Continuing with the cat's love for territory though, when they've marked their territory with their scent, they absolutely despise when that territory is disrupted or invaded. They strive for absolute control, kind of like a cult leader, which we know Catnap is from these etchings about an angel of salvation. Though if we think about it, their love for control of their territory and their hatred of it being disrupted in any way may indicate something especially dark. What if Catnap is perpetually putting their smiling critter friends into a deep sleep? After all, they hate their territory being disrupted, and Catnap is stated to enjoy nothing more than watching them sleep. He'd almost certainly try to keep them knocked out constantly unless if they're explicitly needed, what with their opposing sense. And of course, if they start to question this whole cult that he's developed, he'd especially want them to be out of the picture, say constantly asleep rather than dead. Perhaps we'll have to be the ones to save them. Continuing with this line of logic, cats are generally solitary animals. However, they can form social bonds with a select few, which sounds an awful lot like the cult strategy of making their members feel like they're part of an elite group, a special exclusive group which they should feel lucky to be a part of. Those that cats favor, however, aren't usually the ones that bound up to them, but ones who keep to themselves. Sounds kind of like the complete antithesis of what Bobby Bearhug stands for. After all, she loves to show her love, and hug is literally a part of her name. Given it's pretty obvious that Dog Day would also be against Catnap, given he was supposed to be the leader, and he's all about staying awake rather than asleep, that makes me wonder if Bobby Bearhug would be on Dog Day's side rather than Catnap's. Maybe the real reason Bobby was crawling in the camera was because he was injured, or maybe he was just trying to stay low to the ground since the scent comes from their mouths. Lastly, cats are naturally clean animals. I'm sure if you have a cat at home, you've probably seen them licking themselves far more than once. They bury their waste, and just putting it simply, do not like a messy home. But that's odd, given how the screenshots we've seen are absolutely chaotic. Head in a pole here, toys littered there. We know this place is a mess, so then why, given his cat-like behaviors, does he not clean up? Well, remember, the toys aren't animals. They only act like animals. There's a common stereotype of children that they don't clean up after themselves, whether that means their room, their toys, food, what have you. And this is more than certainly going to be worse when you're in a place you simply don't want to be. Do you see where I'm going with this? As with all of the Bigger Body Initiative experiments, Catnap was once a child who's now possessing this toy. Although they now have animalistic instincts, that doesn't mean there isn't still a person in there to control them. It's safe to say the kid, most likely Theodore given the hints from the ARG, is still, well, a kid. The child in them wins out here. Rather Rather than spend all their time cleaning, they choose to play, much like a child would. With the scientist dead and gone, he no longer has to follow the rules of the people who tormented him. He makes his own rules now, so between instincts and child, he wins out on this one. So in summary, Catnap is likely going to stalk the player the moment he feels a disturbance in his territory, likely the different scent. We'll have to disguise our scent to survive, as well as get a gas mask for that red mist. There's a good chance we'll have to clear out some of this red mist from where the smiling critters are being kept, and there's a good chance that the cult that Catnap built will be stopped by us, as well as our new companions for this chapter, Poppy Bear Hug and Dog Day. Finally, we'll kill Catnap. The prototype will likely collect his body, much like Mommy's, and we'll continue our descent into Chapter 4. So, will Bobby Bear Hug and Dog Day be our allies? How do you think we'll escape from the constantly stalking Catnap? And most importantly, what do you think about this whole theory? This is Spice from Cut Cafe, and I'll see you on the flip side. Peace!